All right. Welcome to another chit chat with me. I am the Black opinionated woman, also known as a bow. So let's just go ahead and address the situation. What you see right now is real life. I'm looking like the cowardly lion from Wizard of Oz. I had just gotten in. I actually bought a chicken to feed my kids and some sides because I just didn't have time. So anyway, this is karma for me thinking I was really cute this morning and didn't check the weather. And you see what I look like. Thank you, rain. But anyway, let's get into what we're here for. This is going to be the recap of, and just like that, episode 7. We're going to talk about Julie and Eliza, and of course, Yappy Michael Patrick King. All right, so if you're new to this channel, I talk about 3 things. I talk about Black women, Black culture, and anything related to middle age. So this show had a cult following, mostly middle-aged women. It went across multiple races and ethnicities, all kinds of stuff like that. So this is one of the things I wanted to talk about in terms of anything related to middle age. All right, I'm just going to get right on into it. So if you selected this, you're in the right spot. Let me take this off. I can put my little ticker up. All right, so this is what you selected, which means you're in the right spot. If you want to hear me recap the Writers Room podcast, that basically just features the degular writers, not the guest writers. Okay. All right, so these writers were the original writers, or writers from the original series of Sex in the City. So I wanted to just take my time and just walk through this. So basically, the title of this was basically it was about sex and the widow. So they really start to explore Carrie's widowness. So basically, Michael Patrick King made it very clear that this was the first time that they used the word widow in all of the series, or I think even the last series. So apparently, they wanted to protect the word widow, the notion of widow. Let me just put this back up here again. I just want to say for the record, why does he have to talk so much? So much. I think the reason why it bugs me so much that he talks so much, let me just take this off for a second. Look at me. Me. I think the reason why it bothers me so much is because you have a bunch of women writers, they're talking about things women think about, feel about, and yes, it's fictional, but it's based off of real life stuff, sort of kind of whatever. But I think the reason why it hit me today. So today I was actually listening to episode 8, right? I had listened to episode 7 last night. I thought about doing both today, episode 7 and episode 8. I digress. Anyway, while I was listening to episode 8 from the Writers Room podcast, it hit me why I was so irritated. Michael Patrick King, it's not so much that he talks so much, which that is a problem. I felt like he was doing a lot of mansplaining. I'm like, here we are. We have a show about women and things that women deal with and go through and all this other stuff. And I kind of felt like, why are you centering yourself in all these conversations? Not to say that you can't contribute, but you would think that he would fall back, right? We know he's one of the executive producers or whatever, but you've got these women writers who are trying to tell a story, okay, trying to find a common thread with women, like, hey, these are the kind of things that we think about, that we talk about, things that we don't want to admit to, etc. And so when he jumps in, it is so irritating. It is just irritating. And I feel like the women are experiencing some sort of Stockholm syndrome, almost as if they're held captive. So there are like little minions, almost like, we love you, Michael Patrick King. I should have had a little minion come across my screen. So I think that's the reason why he is so irritating to me. I feel like he's mansplaining. And I'm like, and you don't need to interject so much. But anyway, let's get on into it. So basically, this was about Carrie being a widow. She goes on a date, and so I know originally when I was watching this series, and maybe it's because I didn't catch these details, I thought it was really soon. I still do think so, but everybody is different, and everybody, like, I think moves on at a different pace. Um, what I find out when they were showing that time lapse in the original episode that they were I knew it was a season change, but for whatever reasons, I was in ding dong mode because I was watching it like in the wee hours in the morning. So, basically, 3 months has passed, and so the writers are basically saying like, "Well, look, at some point she's gonna have to date. It's inevitable." And I kind of felt like, "But why did we have to force the dating thing, right?" Because what happens is, even though they're showing that time lapse, they said the time lapse took a total of 1 minute and 20 seconds to show that they changed it to a new season. I don't even have a problem with that portion, but I just kind of feel like because her relationship with Big John was so tumultuous and they had such a history and the death was devastating in the way she finds him. Is it realistic to think that that's enough time to even begin to broach the subject of dating? So their answer to that was Carrie was forced by the editor instead of like some regular person, to begin this notion or explore the idea of dating. Okay. So, and the way they did it was they wanted to bring in this notion of Oprah, which they spent a little time talking about. And I'm just kind of like, but why did they want to bring in Oprah? And so their way of doing it was saying, oh, well, if you rewrite your book a little bit to add a little bit of light and levity into it, it's already being touted as something that should be, um, I guess, reviewed on one of Oprah's book club lists or whatever. So then they made the comment that she's had about 3 months of other thoughts. And I was like, what would have been nice was if they had explored that, because it's not just the act of dating. Now, I want to just say this, and hopefully people will understand where I'm coming from. Why am I frozen? What is that? Oh, okay. So, this is what I want to say. I have never dealt, I've never been a widow. I can speak to what I have seen people go through, but I can sympathize. It's going to be difficult to empathize per se, as far as because I don't have that set of experiences. But I would have loved to have seen, like, not just what was she thinking about in terms of, losing her spouse, but it's also like, who am I now? Who am I now as far as in relation to, because when for people who've been in long-term relationships or marriages or whatever, good, bad, or indifferent, there's still this, I hate to say like my identity is tied to. Well, no, I won't say it. Well, it is, right? You get we get many labels: wife, mother, professional, non-mother, whatever it is. I think I would have loved to have heard that character development, like, hey, I am no longer a wife. Do I start a new career? Do I leave this apartment? Like, and you know what I mean? Like, so it would have been nice if she had said things like, I hate the apartment that I stayed in because. Now, what I do like was they showed her, all the different phases she went through with the apartments and stuff like that. But I just thought it was interesting that they didn't want to speak to the kinds of things that you discuss when you have lost a spouse, a loved one, someone in a long-term relationship, a significant other, whatever label you want to place on your relationship. So I don't know. What did they say? Sorry, I didn't go back to my notes. Witty observations and funny stuff, but no reference to death. Okay. So basically, I think they originally said, I might be butchering this because I did this last night. I listened to this last night. They were talking about how I think they originally wanted her to reference all kinds of stuff during those 3 months and have it be witty and all this other stuff, but not even discuss the death. And I guess they decided not to do that. They decided to have a write about this whole death, and I'm kind of confused because I'm like, they want to show her writing about the death, but they don't want to show anything else. And this goes back to my previous reviews. I feel like the writers are lazy. I believe that they are advancing the stories too quickly. And I think if they had paced this a little slower, I think people will have received this better. I know I keep repeating myself every episode, but it's like the pacing of this was so fast. it was just kind of like, no, no, but hell no. It was just too much. So, like, they should have slowed it down. Longer episodes or more episodes. But they paced it so fast, and it was just kind of like became something that was it wasn't palatable. It didn't taste good. So anyway, so besides the fact that Michael Patrick King likes to yip and a yap and a yap and a yap, I mean, he has like pure like it's like foot and mouth disease or something. Like he just talks too much, and I'm like, why do you have to mansplain everything? Look at this guy. Doesn't he just look like he talks a lot? Oh my gosh. So anyway, so that's the reason why I say the things that I say. So anyway, they said that when they were dealing with Carrie in this whole writing of the book, and it was very dark, and I totally forgot. I think they said that the editor who was like, "Hey, you need to lighten it up." Her name was Samantha, and I was kind of like, "Boy, they got a lot of Samanthas walking around here in these streets. You got Samantha Jones, the character. You got Samantha Irby. We already know how I feel about her, and now we got Samantha, the editor." So anyway, now this is the thing. They fast forward, and there's this scene where the ladies are lunching, and miraculously, Seema is there. Now we already know how much I really like Seema. She could do no wrong, and she's perfect in every way. But I didn't understand. So this is the thing. They didn't want to call out the fact that Seema was a fourth. And I can appreciate them kind of like putting it out there. You don't have to say it, right? You don't have to say it. You can just kind of like when you're clever enough in the writing, um, the viewer's going to get it. I think the reason why it just seemed like almost like a jump cut was because, like I said, there was no development into this. There was no like with Carrie, like, hey, I want you to come meet my friends. They're amazing in every way, or something like that. Or there was nothing. It was just kind of like she was just there at lunch, and the viewer, at least me, we're kind of like, no, no, but hell no. Like, is she a replacement? See, had they cultivated it some, then we could have been like, okay, we miss Samantha, but you know what? We like Seema. Now, I like Seema, but I just feel like the writers were just lazy. There was just too much happening too quickly. They didn't grow that relationship in front of us. So all of a sudden, you've got Seema showing up to lunch with the ladies. It's kind of like they could have easily just had me in there because I could have came in there like in my mind popping and locking like LTW. I could have put on some really like super outfit and just been like fly. So I just didn't understand. I was like, what is going on? Like Seema, who was perfect in every way and could do no wrong, is now at lunch. That's not her fault. so so then they said that so anyway, they said that they thought that Seema owned, I'm sorry, earned her spot. Now, I'm just trying to think what was the sequence of events that would have the reader kind of like accept that the reader, the viewer accept it. It just didn't make any sense. So I just felt like it was I'm sure it wasn't random to them, but it felt random to me. It felt like a jump cut. It's kind of like in the next episode, I show up and I'm hugging everybody. I'm like, you know what? I had such a great time hanging out with you last night. The viewer's gonna be like, what just happened? The shenanigans. Like, wasn't she just on YouTube yipping and yapping about how much Michael Patrick King just talks too much and all of a sudden she's in the series? So that's what it felt like to me. All right. So then where is it going? Oh, so they want to talk about the whole Carrie dating thing. So this is the thing. They had considered having Carrie make a profile and they wanted to spare the viewer that thing. And I kind of am okay with that. They had Seema do it. Like, so they alluded to it, like Seema's making this profile. Like, I can deal with that. I can buy that. Like, that doesn't bother me so much. I just wanted the I just felt like the writers could have done so much more. I felt like and just like that reboot was accelerated so fast. And so while the writers are like basically loving themselves about how amazing and clever they are, I just feel like they had a blind spot. They had like a serious blind spot because they did not. They couldn't see it from the eyes of the viewers. And I believe I was listening to a previous writer room podcast or whatever it was, and they were talking about when they originally put the I guess this pilot in front of people and people loved it. I'm like, who was in that room? Was this all of their friends who were gonna be like, that's amazing in every way? Or did they have somebody like me or like the other viewers out there who are just kind of like, wait a second, if you're gonna take our show, it's almost like we have ownership of the show, right? And do this. So I'm like, I don't know who was there. I don't know who co-signed the shenanigans, but I just kind of felt like the writers are so in love with themselves. It's and I really feel like Julie and Eliza or Lisa, I think it might be a Stockholm situation. Like I think that these ladies may be tied up. Let me take this off so you can see me. I don't know if they're tied up. I don't know what's going on. They might be under duress because I'm like, it doesn't make sense that they would just be like, I love you, I love you. Like they're just like so in love with homie, yip yapper. Talkable moment. All right. So anyway, I'm glad that they didn't have us watch this whole her making a profile and like it was like because it was still already too soon anyway. I mean, like, how does that work? If you walk in and you see your husband lying on the floor having a heart attack, and although she never called the ambulance, like you're seeing this happen, and now 3 months later you're ready to, I don't know. So they made a whole bunch of jokes about how they didn't want to show her dating on apps. Thank goodness. So now they go into this whole Charlotte situation. I don't know. I guess they said that Charlotte is more current than Carrie because she has children who use apps. But I'm like, is she really more current? Because she's still stuck in a time warp with those Pollyanna dresses and her like weird thing that she does with her eyes and all that little flutter stuff. Like I'm like, it's just so weird. I mean, just um. Anyway, let's move past that. So they pick a date for Carrie. So now the writers are talking about how they pick a date for Carrie or whatever, I guess through Seema. And so they said originally they thought that they were going to make it very comedic. And I'm glad they did not. I'm glad that they thought wiser. They said they decided to be more grown up about it and have it be normal. And let me just say this. Well, let me just say this first. They said they made him a teacher to be part of the like so that he can later take part in the school auction, which comes later in the episode. Um, and they wanted to make it like the end thing. So like it made it so that you can bring them back into it, right? So that they have to run into each other again. And so, I mean, right, I'll stop right here for a second so I can remember to pause here. So this is the thing. I like the fact that they said they did not want to make it comedic after all. They decided to go with a more grown-up thing. And so when she first goes on this really uncomfortable date, I thought that that part up until the inevitable was okay. She had that weird, severe looking bun thing, but I guess she wasn't really trying to be sexy. Now, when I think about it, right? I think she was trying to be attractive, but not like alluring. And when they showed her dating the teacher guy, I guess they call him the Puke professor or whatever, it was okay. Like I've actually had no problems with that scene, although I thought it came too fast in the series. But this is the part I didn't understand. They were talking about how um we already know that Carrie throws up in this scene with the guy. So they had this really long discussion about the throw up scene, which really grossed me out about what it was supposed to be. Um, they wanted to protect it. They went so far as to do it in some like weird back alley, and they were trying to get the paparazzi to go away. They just really wanted to protect the throw up scene, and they went into this whole discussion about how they had all these special effects people, and it's supposed to be wires and not wires. We call things strapped to it. And there's going to be projectile and all this other stuff. And come to find out, they couldn't get it done. The special effects people were just not very good, and it was like this whole big thing. And so basically, whatever the concoction was, they actually had her and the guy, well, mostly her, chug it. She actually chugged it. And so that scene that you saw was not special effects. That was actually her throwing up on scene. And then they said apparently she had a really strong diaphragm or something. They said she was a trained dancer. I didn't know she was a trained dancer, by the way. So at least that's what I remember. But then they said because she was so good, she actually did it again. And I was like, they really wanted to let us know about the throw up. We didn't need that in that scene. We didn't need it. I was so grossed out by that. I'm like, why would you do something like that? Everything about that was just too much. But anyway, they wanted to protect the throw up scene, and they said they had 5 dresses for this scene, by the way. They say typically, so when they find a dress, they usually have to buy multiple ones of it so that, like, if something happens to the one, then they can change out. So they bought 5 dresses for the special effects vomit scene. And I don't understand why so much effort was put into just this vomiting scene. They said it was their most challenging scene. They spent, and I just don't understand why they spent so much time talking about this whole projectile vomiting. And then Sarah Jessica Parker, Carrie's character, she was like really upset with the special effects people, and so she decided to just do it herself. But the entire time they're discussing this, Michael Patrick King was in full on cat mode. He was like, "I'm so perfect. Let me talk, 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 talk." That's all he did was talk so much, and I'm like, why do you have to talk so much? We know that you're like the man when it comes to this show. But aside, I just kind of feel like, you know what, these women have it. Like these aren't like dumb women. Now, granted, I do think they're under duress, and maybe we need to have some signs that says justice for Eliza and Julie, Eliza Zuritsky and Julie Rottenberg. I may have their names backwards because I just kind of feel like there's no reason for them to be like, we love you so much. It's too much. He talks too much. I feel like it's like Stockholm syndrome or something. Like, I don't know where they are. I don't know what's going on, but we need to get them freed. Free Julie and Eliza. So anyway, the point was the writers agreed that they wanted to have, well, mostly Michael Patrick King, a disaster date. So it definitely turned into a disaster once they did the whole throw up thing. My thing was, did it have to be a disaster? I don't have an issue with it being a disaster outside of the throw up thing, but I don't think it had to be a disaster. It could have just been not a good one. It could have just been like, I wasn't ready. I was bored. I was whatever. But I don't really have an issue with it being a so-called disaster. They just didn't need to do the throw up thing. And furthermore, I think they need to give Michael Patrick King a timer. He needs a timer so that when it dings, he has to shut the F up for like about an eternity, like forever. He does too much. Now, anyway, so their whole thing was they went out of their way to make sure that the characters had to drink so much to numb their pain. And I'm like, all right. But basically, they said that, and they referenced the whole guy, I guess, after the whole, like when they went to the auction thing, because remember they wanted him to be part of the auction. So they wanted to make sure that they brought up the vomit thing again. So he sends her a vomit emoji. And okay. So let's get on to the whole Naya thing. They wanted to find a way, and I kind of was here for it. They wanted to find a way. Hold on, let me just gratuitous. Look at this Joker. I'm sorry, I digress. So they wanted to find a way to inject Miranda back into the shenanigans with Naya and just kind of like stepping all over it, right? And the way they did it without it being Miranda's fault was they had her send a text. It comes through the vehicle, and then basically Naya is like her whole situation was bombed out in front of her husband. And that scene, I actually kind of like the scene, although I don't necessarily want to go into her whole infertility issues. But the scene itself wasn't bad until the weirdo guy, they called him Drama Dad. Okay, am I going too fast? So let me back up for a second. This whole thing that led to the text in the car was when they met at the market, and Miranda, aka Satan or Beanie Cap Satan Miranda, sees Naya and her husband come through, and I guess they give each other a smoldering kiss. And Dingaling says, basically said that Miranda was acting a bit bad. Well, I said she was weird. And basically she said she would have watched Naya kiss on a streaming series or something. So Miranda, this entire series is just really preoccupied with her sexuality. So, and maybe I just haven't had the reawakening of it then. I mean, like they say you change and when you get older, stuff like that. And that's not to say that I'm not aware, but it's just kind of like, it's just so weird. But anyway, so Miranda sends that text, bombing out Nia in a car. I'm sorry, that actually was funny when I saw it and that whole thing. But basically, this is the thing. I guess the husband hears it. I can't remember his name. That's why I just keep calling him hubby because it's just not that important to me. But they had to put in this whole drama dad situation where the character acts out like I'm a toddler, I'm a toddler. So basically, that was their words. They called that character drama dad, and that's when Nia gets the light and she almost runs into them. So basically, Michael Patrick King then compares Eliza to a dog with a tennis ball, and apparently she agreed that she's like a dog with a tennis ball. Next, Eliza. So this is the thing. So she goes into this whole conversation about tennis and how she's bad at tennis and wanting to get her therapy. Basically, why I included that part. Apparently, she wanted to get some sort of therapy, and so I guess they had to bring Kristen Davis, who's plays Charlotte, into it. So apparently, Kristen Davis had to take lessons and everything, and they had to take a whole bunch of different shoots. But anyway, so Eliza, apparently, who's a little bit self-centered, I'm like, I'm with her. I guess if you could make it about you, she would. But so she said she wanted to actually have Charlotte playing tennis in almost every episode. I'm glad we didn't see that, especially for somebody who played. Well, I haven't played that much in the last year because I'm too busy trying to raise my kids and I just don't even have the cycle. So it kind of irks me because I have a whole closet full of like really cute outfits and sneakers and all the different tennis rackets and all that good stuff. So anyway, so she said that in her real life she had a fight with her husband. Now this is Eliza Zuritsky. She said she had a fight with her husband after a tennis match, and they left in the middle of a tennis match. I assume she was playing doubles with her husband. I could have been wrong, but anyway, so she was saying after that match, and says they walked all the way home, where I forgot where she was and what street she was on, back to her spot, arguing with her husband. So she wanted to actually use that to further Charlotte's friendship with LTW by, I guess, having that moment where she sees her acting out against Harry. I'm like, okay, whatever. So they talk about how that's the first time that she drops an F bomb, and this is how they made her grow. And basically, they said in the beginning when she was taking her lessons that she was really too cute about it. And I was like, okay. So this is the thing. I will say this. When Eliza says that she got into a fight with her husband after they were playing or whatever, let me tell you, my husband and I made a rule that we could only play with each other maybe once a year. He wanted to play with me. I did not like playing with him because we were both pretty good, but the problem was like we just can't play together. We just can't. And it was so irritating to me. And one thing I'm not a big fan of, not to digress about this, let me just go ahead and because I'm actually more than 3/4 of the way through mine. Look, one of the things I want to say is this. I am not into emasculating my husband or anything like that. I don't do that in public. Now, I may give him some side eyes look like, but like we don't do that whole arguing in public thing. So I get what she was saying, and it's just not something we don't really participate in. But couples in tennis, it's rough. It's rough. It's hard. So I can see, like, I've had a couple of arguments. Look, we won a championship and we still weren't happy. We won the championship and we were still like, I don't understand. Like, we shouldn't have even gone to a third set tie. Like, why did you miss that? It's petty. So I was like, look, we get once a year, bandit. I'm like, we need to protect our relationship because like I'm competitive, he's competitive. I digress. Where I was going with that was, so when she was making those references as a person who plays, like I got what she was saying. I just kind of felt like, yeah, we didn't need to have a whole season of it. And thank goodness. All right. All right. So this is where we go to the whole Miranda and Shay thing. All right. Just about done here. Let me see. Did I write any other notes in the back of this? Only a little bit. So I didn't realize that Miranda, when she was waiting for Shay's text, I didn't know Ding Dong was waiting for 3 months. Let me tell you something. I'm not going to be pining for somebody that I haven't been with that long if they haven't returned my text for 3 months. Like, I don't think I've ever done that. I can honestly say, like, if I just met someone, I just can't. No, I can't imagine. I cannot. So she was waiting for 3 months for this text. And so they said that they wanted to give Miranda this whole fantasy and the wondering about the whole like dating thing. But I'm sitting there thinking, like, usually after 3 months, if you feel like you've been ghosted or something, like you would get that. Like, who's still wondering after 3 months? I mean, now, granted, I know I'm not at a dating game, but I've never. No, I just. Well, I didn't really have that many experiences though. Not a lot like that because I just always have resolution. I don't know. I can't imagine if I send someone a text message that I'm still waiting around for 3 months. And so we go when Miranda during the series, she's like, "Well, what's the expiration date for a text?" I'm like, "Honey, after like a few days, if you don't hear back from somebody, just to consider that. Like maybe even less than that. I guess maybe I'm too harsh, but I can't imagine waiting around for 3 months." So they said that they wanted to show Miranda giving it another try with Steve. This is where I disagree with them. I know I said this during the regular episode. I don't think she gave it a real try. She goes in the house. She tries to basically accost Steve, and basically she just wants to get fingered down real quickly and all this other stuff. Like there was no romance or anything. If you're telling me that you guys have had a dead relationship and you're like this, you haven't done anything in years. How is that fair that he's just like that, right? So now he wants to go wash his hands, and I guess this takes the romance out of it. But hey, I don't know what he was doing. Maybe he needs to wash his hands. All I know was it was just not even realistic. I was like, come on, writers. They could have done better. They could have done better. They could have consulted me and said, what should I have done? And I would have come up with a much better reaction than that. Or they could have like dog walked it, like walk the dog, is it the same? Walk the dog into that. But her showing up home, like, I'm going to give it a try. Think like, no, that's not even realistic. So anyway, what did I say? What did I write down? I wonder if he. Oh, so there was a conversation she had about like, hey, I wonder, you know, if something about ever having sex again. And so Carrie's just basically she's in that situation. Um, she's like, what did I write? I don't even remember what I wrote. Let me just skip to this. So all I know is I wrote down that Miranda's sex obsessed and she treated Steve bad. And I just feel like that scene with him was not organic. Um, the writers were talking about how Miranda has to be in charge, but when she's with Shay, she's not in charge. And I guess I can see how that could be exciting, especially like if you know how they say people who are into I don't even know what I can say on this app. Um BDSM or whatever it is. Maybe like if like the thrill of not being in charge. Or they say like women, like high powered women, they love the thought of not being in charge sometimes. I don't know if it's true, but I can see that. I can buy that. But they just fast forwarded in that scene. They were like, oh well, they tried the counseling twice. And I kind of felt like the writers don't have to be this lazy. All the viewer saw is she was just a douchebag to Steve. She wanted to be fingered real quick, and then she's like, "This isn't working." That's all we saw. Like there wasn't enough finessing. She didn't, but they didn't. These writers were lazy. So anyway, she basically said, Miranda basically says it's kind of like having zombie sex, but basically between two dead people. I'm almost done with this because for whatever reasons, episode 7 wasn't the writers' podcast wasn't that thrilling for me. But anyway, so when Miranda sees Shay doing a stand up, this is when she was so shady. It was like She was talking to Carrie, and this is at the auctions. She sees Shay doing the stand up, and she was like, it just walks off. Like Carrie meant nothing because she's so obsessed with Shay. Like I told you, Miranda's character is shot out. This was one dizzy chick. So now she's in her feelings because Shay wasn't like gushing all over her. Like she was just kind of like, hey, And so now Miranda's in her feelings and she's trying to, the writer said that they're trying to, like, Miranda was trying to maintain her dignity. She was basically like, when Shay says, hey, I want to get you like naked and all sort of stuff like that. So basically Shay was telling Miranda, like, tell me what you want, So the writers thought it was a really sweet scene. When it post coitus, is it coitus? Coital? Whatever the word is. Post doing the do, getting down with the get down. So they're basically saying like they thought it was a really sweet scene. And when Miranda is basically saying that she's in love with Shay, where was my notes? And that's when Shay was like, no, you're in love with yourself, with me. Like, or something along those lines. So basically, it's just calling out the fact that, hey, I think you like how you feel when you're in love with someone, or this new you, or something along those lines. So that's pretty much it. Honestly, episode 7 was uneventful for me. I didn't really hate it. I just felt like Michael Patrick King, he talks too much. I think Julie and Eliza are like experiencing Stockholm syndrome because now they think like he's amazing in every way. And so anything he says, it's just, so I'm just that's where I'm at with it. So, all right, look, I don't really have much else to say. This was really the most uninteresting. Yeah. But oh, you know what? I haven't said this in a while. So look, I haven't mentioned this in a while, but if you like the content, go ahead and subscribe, like the video, send it to your aunties and your friends, your neighbors, and everybody else. You can leave a comment, watch the videos all the way through. All of those things are helpful. If there's something that you would like for me to talk about, let me know. Other than that, I'm going to assume that you guys love every single thing and that I'm perfect in every way. But the best thing you can do is actually let me know and communicate. One of the things is, if you subscribe, it lets YouTube know that you think I'm amazing. But also liking or commenting also helps too. So I'm sure you guys have heard people say all these things before. I am the worst at reminding people because I kind of feel like you're either going to like it or you're not. But every once in a while, I will do due diligence and say, hey, if you like it, go ahead and subscribe, share, etc., etc. Okay, so look, I'm going to end this. I haven't decided if I'm going to go ahead and recap episode 8 tonight as well. I actually had this ambitious plan to do 3 videos, but I am no longer feeling ambitious. It is 7:13, and after seeing this situation, I figured I should go do something about it. Also, what you don't know is, to my right is a plate of cheese and crackers, and and to my left is a glass of some bubbly. I threw some strawberries in there too, that I'm ready to like throw down. So I'm going to eat those things so you guys won't hee haw at me, because it's probably not going to be pretty how I get ready to dive in on this situation. It's not going to be pretty. Nothing about it's going to be pretty. All right, let me get on up out of here. Thanks for listening. Black Opinionated Woman out.